Welcome to How to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Historic Archetype, Ice Barrier.
Chapter 1.
So in this video, I'm going to talk about Ice Barrier, how Ice Barriers has influenced Yu-Gi-Oh! And what it's all about. With that being said, let's get on with the rest of the video.
Chapter 2.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about Ice Barriers. As you can see in front of you, we have the most infamous cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! For its time period, which was Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, and Brionac, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. These two cards, when they were initially released, were absolutely broken. First of all, Brionac, being one of the early synchros we got in the game, meant that it was available to all decks, and it was completely and utterly broken, especially its pre-errated version, right? The ability to just bounce cards from your opponent's to your opponent's side of the field, or your cards, bouncing your cards or your opponent's cards for free with the simple cost of discarding was absolutely insane. The fact that Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, was the first card that ever introduced hand loop into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because hand looping just did not exist before Ice Barriers became a thing, and Trishula definitely introduced that. There's a lot of things that Ice Barriers introduced into Yu-Gi-Oh! That even Delauren. Ice Bearers, I would say, are the first archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! History to, when they're initially released, all of their major synchros were limited, right? I think this was the first time they had such a big impact to the game that every single extra deck monster they had at the time was limited. Sure, we had at the time period of the release, we did have other archetypes that came out, but nothing was nearly as powerful as Ice Barrier because they were just everywhere, they were prolific, and they were just in every single deck. Truly was the start of something we're familiar with today, generic extra deck monsters. And Ice Bear truly epitomized this. Their extra deck would be everywhere. You'd see them in every single deck, in every single thing. The best decks at the time always had ice barriers, right? And that was the way for ice barriers, where ice barriers extra deck would be everywhere, but the ice barrier as a deck would be nowhere. Indeed, this is a theme that we see time and time again with ice barrier. Even today, with ice barriers having much more support and much better support, you rarely do see ice barriers as a deck. You do see their extra deck counterparts in every single deck, though. That's something to bear in mind. Even though the Brionac and other cards have gotten errated now, and so they're not as powerful as they were before, but definitely this is something that needs to be considered and talked about. And I think that's it, really. So let's head on to the conclusion.
Final chapter.
So, all I've got to say here as we approach the end is that Ice Bearers had a huge impact in early Yu-Gi-Oh! As they were the first archetype to introduce the generic support for extra decks everywhere. It was a familiar thing, that a concept that Konami introduced with them, and it is something that is prevalent to this very day. The fact that you can just have extra deck monsters that can just go in every single deck, no locking to the mechanic or anything in any way. Just you can just slap it in, put it in your deck, and hey presto, you've got a really strong deck. This familiarity with genericness is something that would come to plague the game for a long time to come. And it's only since 2023 we removed generic negates and all the generic nonsense that we've been having in the game. So that's definitely something that needs to be considered and something that needs to be talked about when we talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that's it, really. So tune in next time as I'll talk about more things on this channel. Hope to see you soon.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.